Hello, good morning. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. I'm Shweta Kothari. On the show today, we will discuss what's leading to market sell-off for the 8th consecutive day, as we saw on Friday, and also coming up on and that discussion, of course, will be followed by what is happening as far as markets is concerned. On the show today, we'll be joined by Nishchal Maheshwari, and also joining us would be Srinath Sridharan to talk about cooperative banks and why the New India Cooperative Bank failed as it did, coming up very, very shortly. Watching Morning Brief at 9. I'm Shweta Kothari. Here are the top headlines we are tracking at this hour. A 4.3 magnitude earthquake hit Delhi NCR early on Monday with epicenter in the national capital. The tremors lasted for a few seconds and caused panic among residents. Combined market value of 8 of the top 10 valued domestic firms stumbled 2 lakh crore rupees last week itself amid broader market sell-off. And foreign institutional investors net sold 29,183 crore rupees worth of shares so far in February in cash segment as bearish trend reigns over markets. And Wall Street closes mixed as weak retail sales and tariff concerns weigh in on global markets. US retail sales too dropped sharply in the month of January, indicating a slowdown in consumer spending amid rising prices and economic uncertainty. New India Cooperative Bank's general manager held in 122 crore rupees scam. A Mumbai court on Sunday remanded Hitesh Mehta, the general manager and head of accounts in the New India Cooperative Bank, to police custody till 21st of February in the alleged misappropriation of funds from the bank. And India's very first Made in India chip will come out in September or October this year, Minister of Information and Broadcasting Ashwini Vaishnav said. Parliamentary panel on One Nation, One Election to meet on 25th of February. Panel chairman PP Chaudhary says had a positive discussion on 31st of January and members were asked to give suggestions. And US President Donald Trump plans to impose tariffs on imported cars by 2nd of April, raising trade tensions globally. And we'll be tracking all those stories here on Morning Brief at 9. But first up, the combined market valuation of 8 of the top 10 domestic firms saw a major dip last week, eroding by as much as 2 lakh crore rupees. The sharpest decline was recorded by Reliance Industries, in line with the broader bearish trend that is currently reigning in the stock markets. Equity benchmark, Sensex and Nifty continued their downward trajectory, extending their losing streak to 8th consecutive day on Friday. In the past 8 trading sessions alone, the BSE Sensex has plunged by 3.36%, while the Nifty index dropped by 3.41%. Now, prominent companies such as Reliance Industries, Tata Consultancy Services, HDFC Bank, Infosys, State Bank of India, Hindustan Unilever, Bajaj Finance and ITC have collectively seen their market valuation erode by as much as 2 lakh crore rupees. So what is leading to the sell-off in the markets, and what does it really mean for retail participants, and what should they do? Let's talk about all of that. Nishchal Maheshwari joining us on the show. Nishchal, not a very good last 1 week as far as markets is concerned. People, of course, and retail investors are particularly eyeing on what's really going to happen this week. What are the broader key trends that you will be tracking this week?
Morning, Shweta. Thanks for having me here. I think there are 2 or 3 things basically which I think for not this week, but I think for the next quarter one should closely track. I think one is what are the pronouncements which the Trump administration makes. I think that is the most important thing. The world is waiting with bated breath. What next? So I think he's just announced the auto tariffs now. Earlier it was aluminium and oil tariffs. Now I think it is auto tariffs. So I think this is one big issue basically. I think which will keep the market unsettled. The second one is obviously I think a lot of it is already passed through the last quarter results and how has been the commentary by the managements. I think these are the two things basically one should keep on tracking. But I think the first one is much more important because that is now going to impact us not only for this week or a month, but a quarter or maybe 6 months before we finally see some semblance there.
All right, at least a quarter more before we see some sense of semblance there as far as normalization is concerned. But past 1 week itself, I think Nishchal, retail participants are very wary. Both Nifty and Sensex have dropped 3.5% each. What are we making of what's leading to this broad market sell-off? Apart from all the global tariff war that is unfolding now with, Donald Trump also announcing potential tariffs on vehicles going forward, four-wheelers going forward. What's really happening in the market? What are we making of what's really moving the FIIs out of Indian markets?
So if you really look at it, it's the dollar basically, the strengthening dollar and the US economy doing well. It is making the FIs nervous. Rupee is depreciated. And I think that depreciation of the rupee is causing a lot of problems. So basically the FIs are finding their home domestic market basically doing much better with the appreciating dollar. And that's why they are moving the money out of all emerging markets. So it's not only India where they are moving the money out, but I think they are selling across the whole emerging market sector. So I think the selling is, I think it is overdone. But basically trends can last longer than any logic. And that's why we're seeing this kind of a panic in the market.
And in your assessment, is the panic likely to continue as we move into as we move into another consecutive week that starts today, or have the markets really lost? From a broader point of view, are you hoping that perhaps going forward, starting today, that there's going to be some recalibration and perhaps money will come back in? Because we've seen DII support over the past 1 week, even as FIs continue to sell off. Is that something that's going to sustain in the markets going forward today?
So I think DIs have been buying for the last 1 year. I think they will continue to buy because they are still getting fresh inflows. So DIs are going to continuously support. But my issue remains to be that I do not see that there is a quick solution to this problem. So we have to wait it out. Yes, valuations are now interesting at these levels. The market has corrected quite a bit. The stocks have corrected much more. So there are a lot of potential stocks which one can look at. But the issue remains to be that the broader market still is under pressure. So I would recommend people to stay and watch for some more time before start looking at doing anything.
All right. And a lot of data points, of course, also coming in when it comes to the strength of the markets. And also, as you rightly mentioned, since there's been a correction in the past week, perhaps the overvaluation factor seems to be a little out of window right now. Do you think the market is still heated? Do you think it's still overvalued right now? And what are we making of the commentary that is coming in as far as, corporate earnings is concerned? Because that continues to be also tepid and also weighing in on the markets.
Yeah, so I think valuation is corrected quite a bit basically, but there are still pockets where the valuations are much higher, and that should be avoided. I think going ahead, one should look at two things. One is basically growth, clean balance sheet, strong management. So I'm saying good, get into quality now. So quality with growth, I think, is the most important thing for the next 1 year. I think the broader market is not going to go anywhere, maybe 5-7% movement here or there, but I don't think so. Broader market is going is taking off in a big way, so be careful. The earnings side, a bit disappointing. I think earnings have been slowing down for the last 2 quarters. And I think next quarter will decide basically what kind of growth we are projecting for FY26. And I think that will determine a lot basically where the market goes.
All right. Obviously, that will determine a lot where market goes. But globally, investors are also going to be keeping a close eye on the FOMC policy meeting that was held in January. But also going forward, I think a lot of interesting developments coming into fore. The Ukraine-Russia talks, which are now advancing. Perhaps we're looking at a culmination of war there. The global economic data, PMI data, also likely to come in, and that is also going to move markets. But domestic economic data is concerned. We know that balance of trade data is due on 17th of February, which is today. So perhaps that will also, give us some sense of where Indian economy is headed. But as far as, coming from a point of view of economy, Nishal, I think that is where a lot of people are also worried that even though the domestic indicators from a GDP perspective to inflation, they remain steady, if not better than what they were. Even then, we're continuing to see a market sell-off, and perhaps that is going to be a worrisome factor going into this week. What according to you, and I want to come back to you, what according to you would be the broad indicators, that one should watch out for as far as this week is concerned? And then I also want to talk about, perhaps a rejig in portfolio that a lot of people are really worried about. Should they look at pulling out of the markets? Should they look at investing in, let's say, better assets right now, which are giving them better returns, such as gold? What's your view there?
So I think as far as this week is concerned, I think I said earlier, I think the most important thing is basically the whole world is looking to what really US is doing. And I think that's where the focus is, because it's impacting the dollar, it's impacting the flows world over. And that is the most important thing basically one should track. So every day there is something new, and that's why I think market doesn't like uncertainty, and this uncertainty is causing the problem basically. I'm saying people may be sitting on cash, but they are not deploying it for the moment because they don't know what's going to happen next. And that's why I think this uncertainty is killing the market, and that's why I think one should keep on the sidelines. As far as portfolios are concerned, I told you earlier, basically this year is going to be more stock selection. So you have to be very careful basically what you are investing in. Go for quality stocks basically where there is a decent amount of growth, maybe a 15% kind of a growth with a very decent management, strong balance sheet. I think that's the right choice basically to make it this year.
All right, go for very strong stocks with strong fundamentals. That's the word coming in from Nishal. Nishal, before I let you go, the weakness in secondary market is also impacting the primary markets, the IPO market. For instance, only 2 IPO openings for the subscription are going to be open for this week, both from the SME segment. There is no public issue in the main board segment at all. So as far as IPO market is concerned, I think that's also relatively now being impacted by the secondary market sell-off.
Yes, definitely. I think the last 3 years have been a golden period for the IPOs. So I think a lot of money has got raised, and partially I think that is also to be blamed basically when so much money gets sucked out from the secondary, then I think the secondary will suffer. But having said that, I think if this kind of market continues, I think maybe the IPO market and all is gone into a cold phase for the next maybe a quarter at least.
All right, Nishal, thank you very much for taking time out. Thank you for joining us here on the
Thanks
show
a lot.
today.
Thanks for having me.
And well, we continue to track markets, of course. We will be coming back after this very short break to tell you how markets have opened as of this morning. You are watching Morning Brief at 9.
मैं और आप, कोई फर्क नहीं है हमें।
6 needed of the last ball.
जब ताक लेते हैं अपनी मंजिल को, तो उसे पाने के लिए कमर तोड़ मेहनत करते हैं। पर कभी कभी मेहनत और मंजिल के बीच
हाउस इज नॉट इन योर बजट सर, सॉरी,
रह जाता है एक फासला। खैर, मुझे उस फासले को मिटाने के लिए थोड़ी और मेहनत लगेगी, पर शुक्र है आपके पास है टाटा कैपिटल, जो मिटाए फासले आपकी मेहनत और मंजिल के बीच। टाटा कैपिटल, मिटाए फासले।
Your promise is IGI certified. Your ambition is IGI certified. 14-step grading process. 50 years of trust. IGI Trust Certified.
News9.
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 News9. News9.
Now they're relaunching News9.
News9 is coming back.
News9 will be very useful for creating public opinion.
It's going to be only truth.
And I wish you all the best. And
Very happy and all the best.
बहुत अच्छा लगा मेरे को उनको मुबारकबादी देता हूँ.
Congratulations to News9. All the very best.
All the very best, News9.
I wish the channel all the very best.
let News9 be the voice of Karnataka and India.
इस खेल में अब खेला होगा, हर नहले पे दहला होगा. टीम बड़ा है, स्टेज बड़ा है, पूरा भारत साथ खड़ा है. साथ खड़ा है. गेम बड़ा है. Dribble like a rap, pass, 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 setting up the trap. Kick it hard in the booth. Chuck, there for the ball. Chuck a day 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 for the ball.
We made history for a reason tonight.
Will it change the shape of American foreign policy? Violence has erupted in Manipur once again. How can we pass judgment, sir, before any inquiry that, they were volunteers or militants, sir?
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. I'm Shweta Kothari. Let's take a quick look at how markets have opened as of this Monday morning. And markets in red again, as we'll pull up on our screens right now. We're given to understand for the 9th consecutive day today, markets opening in deep red. As a matter of fact, Nifty down by about 0.6% at 22,789. Sensex also down by about 0.68% at 75,458. Both mid cap and small cap taking a massive beating there, both down about 1.5% each. Mid cap at 48,892 and small cap down to 15,174. It's the India Wix which is a cause of worry. Volatility index up by as much as 6.7% at 16.03. So there you have it for the 9th consecutive day today. Markets broadly opening in the red yet again. Nifty holding a crucial 22,700 mark, just over that 700 mark. That of course is the mark that we will be eyeing very, very closely. Sensex just close to about 75,400 mark. Those will be the crucial levels to track both Nifty and Sensex at. But shifting focus now. The Economic Offences Wing of Mumbai Police arrested a senior accounts executive from New India Cooperative Bank on Saturday for allegedly siphoning off 122 crore rupees in cash from bank's Prabhadevi and Goregaon branches. 57-year-old Hitesh Mehta reportedly confessed to taking money from banks' safes, and since the pandemic, he said he had been continuing to do so. The fraud was uncovered during an audit by the Reserve Bank of India on Wednesday. Now, this comes 2 days after the RBI imposed a 6-month transaction ban on the bank due to irregularities in its lending. Now, following this, the RBI superseded the bank's board for 12 months now, leaving customers scrambling to recover their savings. The development raises one question, and that is, how safe are India's cooperative banks. Let's talk about that. Dr. Srinath Sridharan joining us live. He's a policy researcher, corporate advisor. Srinath, thank you very much for taking time out. This is, an issue that really hurts the people of this country a lot more than it really hurts the regulator at large, and which is when it comes to light that banks such as the India Cooperative Banks or any other cooperative bank for that matter is scrambled and is a part of a larger conspiracy to siphon off money. It's people's money. It is their hard-earned savings, and they don't really know what's going on. Where is the fault? Where does the regulator fail to really supervise these banks?
Good morning, Shweta. I think I have a slightly different take. Here, I think thanks to the regulatory regime tightening over the last few years, some of these frauds are being unearthed. The real challenge in some of these grassroots level banks, as I would call the cooperative banks, because they're very, very localized and they work with a certain set of cohorts of customers who are in the local geography or certain, let's say, communities, they come together. The reality is a lot of these banks are very, very scattered. So most of these banks have political influence. You have politically connected individuals controlling and running some of these banks. The challenge is how do we move away from the political control to RBI control? I think that's something that would going to need a lot more political will. It's not just about RBI. RBI, if you remember in 2020, the Banking Act Amendment kind of gave its power, and which is why this entire scam has been unearthed. The second point and the largest challenge with us is, despite all that we might speak about supervision or using technology to find out what's going wrong, the human ingenuity and humans are the cause of most of these problems. If you look at the history of financial services globally, go back to 500 years, almost 99% of all large scandals have human greed wanting to cheat the others. You just need one, let's say, slightly smarter guy beating the system and the system collapses. So I think here the challenge is going to be how do we bring more and more cooperative banks under RBI control, and how do we take away, because some of the classifications or categories of cooperative bank licenses actually have dual regulatory reporting. While the RBI would look at some of these, it is the registrar of cooperative societies in that particular state or the city which is also looking at some of the administrative aspects. Okay. If we can crash them and bring them into one single fold called RBI, I think we have a better chance of supervision. All right.
If one were to look at it, Srinath, given that there is a dual regulatory oversight, both from the state government and RBI, the basic assumption therefore goes is that it makes it all the more regulated for that matter. So where is the real challenge in regulating cooperative banks?
So while theoretically it sounds like that, Shweta, it is not so. Why is it that most of the cooperative banks across India, especially in, let's say, Tier 2, Tier 3 India, have a chairman of the board who is a locally politically exposed or politically influential, or a politician himself as a chairman of the bank? That's a very, very large governance flaw. Some of these banks do loan mailers just before the run-up of elections, which is seen across the country as well. So we have a challenge that the states may not necessarily cooperate or take financial governance far more seriously than what RBI would. I think that is where the challenge is in terms of how do you control the narrative. So states do not necessarily understand the financial prudence and the risks around what RBI wants to control.
Okay. All right. And, I want to talk about customers for a minute here, because it's the customers who are actually left scrambling without their money, without their life savings. And, a lot of customers, at least locally, rely on these cooperative banks. These are grassroots banks, as you rightly pointed out. So therefore, these are the go-to banks for a lot of people who reside in rural areas, for that matter. And when it comes to, regulatory clampdown, a part of their money, they can never really recover. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the only money that perhaps they can recover is to the tune of about 5 lakh rupees. Earlier it was 2 lakh rupees. That limit was further upped till 5 lakh rupees. So despite whatever savings they may have in these banks, that's the only money they can get back in case there is a regulatory supervision on the bank.
Yes, Shweta, you're right. The deposit insurance scheme of the RBI enforces all the banks to cover fixed deposits or all kinds of deposits up to 5 lakh rupees and interest as well. So that is one saving grace. And if you look at most of the cooperative bank challenges, we've seen the last at least the 7-8 years, we've seen at least 10-12 banks going through such tough measures. I think in that narrative, nearly 98% of all customers get their full money back. It's just that when they clamp down saying that you cannot withdraw the money, it is not you're losing the money. They're just getting some time. If you notice, even in this case, they brought in an administrator and a team of advisors who are experts in different fields to come and figure out where is the mess and what is the problem. So until then, so I assume that it's going to take under 7 to 10 days before they will release some of these monies out. It's just to assess what has really gone wrong and the depth of the problem. So the money is up to 5 lakhs is safe, but over and above that will depend on what is the nature of the actual fraud and is that money recoverable and is it going to be impairing the viability of the bank itself. Typically in such cases, the RBI then figures out a scheme of amalgamation or merger to merge this bank to some other bank and let it go as a going concern. Very rarely has a RBI ever left a bank hanging and shut shop. So that's a comfort zone, and I think it is the ethos of RBI to say that customer comes first. So while there will be delay and the pain, the money is not lost. I think we have seen liquidations of financial services businesses where the creditors take haircut and the depositors are taking haircut. And I think those are the lessons RBI has brought to some of these tougher stands they take.
All right, and I also want to talk specifically on this fraud. And when we look at how the money went missing from the coffers of at least 2 branches of this bank, I think it also brings to light a larger collusion among employees, in this case a general manager, that perhaps remains underreported, Srinath.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Shweta. I mean, let's look at in a cooperative bank, a general manager is as good as probably, let's say, a COO of sorts. The great general manager is a misnomer and it's misleading as well. A very, very senior person that there are people to look up to. And there are lots of those risk flags that get taken, right? If you're going to actually carry cash out of your locker, it's going to be in a bag, in a box, in a trunk, in something. And there must be cameras in the branch. There must be records that you are actually saying that I'm taking out this cash. It's not as if you're putting in a couple of crores in a haversack and moving out. So how did it miss the red flag? So these are the questions that there must be collusion. It's not as if one person has just taken it and simply vanished, right? So that's something that will have to come into the picture. 2, the internal audits and counting of cash or deposits and all that, how did it not tally? If they're saying that this has been happening since COVID, we are actually talking about nearly 4 years has gone by. Right. Until the RBI inspection, they missed it. So there is a level of, I think, granularity of seriousness that we'll have to see. The staff, the internal audit, the external audit, and the management reports, where have they missed? And knowing the RBI, I think this is the granular details they will get into now and use this as a lesson for bringing in tighter regulations for the other cooperative banks.
All right, and before I let you go, I think this overlapping of jurisdiction on regulation on who is to regulate cooperative banks is often leaving, the customers scrambling. And in this case, cooperative banks coming increasingly under RBI radar only to realize that there's some sort of fraud with depositors' money at large. Now, before I let you go, Srinath, I think it's also important, if I have to ask you, what exactly should regulator do at this point in time to really strengthen the regulatory mechanism to ensure, many of these banks are brought within the purview and many of these frauds are detected early?
See, I think there's a lesson here from the political economy perspective, Shweta. I think the message is, just like we have the Finance Commission or the GST Council, if the central government and the state governments can collaborate and work with RBI, I think they will understand that for short-term political gains, don't use banks for populism. Use banks to strengthen grassroots level consumer confidence. And I think it is going to need a lot more political will than just expecting RBI to pull up the socks. RBI is already acting on these, but they will need more political cooperation. And I think that's what is missing.
All right, RBI would need more political cooperation in case of cooperative banks specifically. Are you hoping that they should fall completely within the purview of RBI? Do you think that is something we could see going forward?
Yeah, I think every time a scam happens, everybody reacts, everybody screams from top of the lung. But give it under 1 month, it'll die a slow death. And that's sadly the case. We are not shown so much of seriousness. If you look at the executive, which is the RBI, shows seriousness, but the political nature of some of this, in the large scheme of the Indian banking system, with no disrespect to the customers and their sentiments here, a loss of 150 or 200 crores seems like almost insignificant. And I think that's the fear that I have, that politicians look at, saying it's really nothing, just move on.
All right. Well, Srinath, thank you very much for taking time out. Thank you for joining us on that story, and visuals, of course, on your screens right now. Shortly, we're on your screens of a lot of depositors of the New India Cooperative Bank really scrambling outside the bank branches to get their hard-earned money back. Let's now shift focus to the top stories coming in globally as of this morning. US President Donald Trump plans to impose tariffs on imported cars by 2nd of April this year, raising trade tensions globally. Wall Street closes mixed on a Friday as weak retail sales and tariff concerns wane on markets. US retail sales dropped sharply in the month of January, indicating a slowdown in consumer spending amid rising prices and economic uncertainty. Global markets react to Donald Trump's geopolitical intervention, gold surges and US rate cut bets as attention in fact, as it turns to G20 meeting and key economic reports. Trump expresses openness to Nippon Steel taking a minority stake in the US Steel after rejected bid. Elon Musk announces Grok 3 launch with a live demo, touting it as a ChatGPT challenger with advanced capabilities. And TikTok returns to US app stores after Donald Trump delays bans, with potential for an extended delay and ongoing discussions on a possible sale. Shein UK stock market listing likely delayed to second half of 2025 due to Donald Trump's move on de minimis rules. French luxury group Hermès surpasses expectations with 18% Q4 sales growth, driven by strong demand for high-end items like Birkin bags, with LVMH and Gucci struggles.
मैं और आप, कोई फर्क नहीं है हमें। जब ताक लेते हैं अपनी मंजिल को तो उसे पाने के लिए कमर तोड़ मेहनत करते हैं, पर कभी कभी मेहनत और मंजिल के बीच
हाउस इज नॉट इन योर बजट सर, सॉरी,
रह जाता है एक फासला। खैर, मुझे उस फासले को मिटाने के लिए थोड़ी और मेहनत लगेगी, पर शुक्र है आपके पास है टाटा कैपिटल, जो मिटाए फासले आपकी मेहनत और मंजिल के बीच। टाटा कैपिटल, मिटाए फासले।
Mama must be missing us, na?
Let's take it one man, give me one day. Feel the itch under my skin, it's a fun day. You be like it when you see we are done, hey. It doesn't matter, just gotta get going.
New GT line, Taigun and Virtus. Volkswagen.
इस खेल में अब खेला होगा, हर नहले पे दहला होगा। ड्रीम बड़ा है, स्टेज बड़ा है, पूरा भारत साथ खड़ा है। साथ खड़ा है, गेम बड़ा है। Dribble like a rap, pass, 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 setting up the trap. Kick it hard in the booth. Chuck, 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 they football.
We are at the highest airfield in India and one of the highest airfield in the world. It is the most beautiful airfield in India. There's no aircraft that cannot land on this airfield.
This will be the highest airfield in India and 5th in the world.
This particular runway will cater for most of the military aircraft, fighters and transport landing.
A strategic edge to the forces, deterrent for our neighboring countries.
Jai Hind.
Yes, 100% completion. TV9 News and your News9 Plus is the first team here.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. US President Donald Trump announced plans to unveil tariffs on imported cars around 2nd of April. The move adds to a series of levies he has threatened since taking office, though it remains unclear if these tariffs will apply to all auto imports. Now, since his inauguration, Donald Trump has used tariff as a tool to raise revenues, addressing trade imbalances and pressure other nations on US concerns. Currently, about half of all cars sold in the US are made domestically. A major portion comes from neighboring Mexico and Canada, while major auto-producing nations like Japan, South Korea and Germany also contribute to imports.
Yeah, please.
You mentioned auto tariffs the other day.
Yeah.
When do you plan to unroll?
Howard, I'd say over the next sometime, or maybe around April 2nd. I would have done them on April 1st. Believe it or not, I'm a little superstitious. No, literally, we had it planned for April 1st. I said, let's make it April 2nd. You know how much money that costs? That costs a lot of money just that one day, but we're going to do it on April 2nd, I think. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
And a mixed finish on Wall Street last Friday led to tech giants Nvidia seeing some gains, while Microsoft dipped as investors reacted to shifting trade policies. Meanwhile, Treasury yields edged lower just a day after US President Donald Trump announced reciprocal tariff plans but held back from imposing new ones. More details in this report.
Wall Street's main indexes ended mixed on Friday, with the Dow down more than 1/3%, the S&P 500 flat, and the Nasdaq up 0.4%. While President Trump's tariff talk dominated most of the week's headlines, investors on Friday focused on retail sales figures for January, which took an unexpected nosedive after 4 strong months. Sam Stovall is chief investment strategist at CFRA Research.
Well, the market is basically treading water today, essentially because we get the good news that it sounds like tariffs are more rhetoric than reality. Same for the concern recently about inflation. But now we got retail sales that came in weaker than anticipated. So investors are trying to make head or tails out of the direction of this economy, interest rates, etc.
Among big tech stocks, Nvidia added 2.6% and Apple gained 1.3%. Microsoft and Amazon both ended lower. Airbnb jumped 14% after the vacation home rentals company posted higher quarterly revenue. And Applied Materials fell 8% after the chip-making equipment supplier forecast second quarter revenue below estimates. U.S. markets will be closed on Monday for the President's Day holiday.
And January also saw the biggest decline in U.S. retail sales in nearly 2 years. The slowdown raises concerns about economic growth as the first quarter gets underway, with analysts watching closely for signs of broader cooling in consumer spending. This report has the details.
U.S. retail sales dropped by the most in nearly 2 years in January, a sharp pullback in spending by what has been a very resilient consumer. A report from the Commerce Department on Friday showed retail sales dropped 0.9% last month, far more than the 0.1% dip that economists polled by Reuters had been expecting. Economists speculated that rising prices, confusion over tariffs, and overall economic uncertainty were forcing consumers to tighten their purse strings. A University of Michigan survey last week showed consumer sentiment has deteriorated, with many Americans expecting higher inflation due to President Trump's tariffs on imports. Environmental factors, such as frigid temperatures and California's wildfires, could have also hurt sales. The larger-than-expected decline was across the board, from online stores to auto dealerships. One bright spot was restaurants and bars, which increased 0.9% in January, a significant jump from the prior month.
And from market reactions to U.S. President Donald Trump's influence on global conflicts to the shifting expectations around the U.S. rate cuts to gold surging more than 10% since Trump's election win, here's a look at all top business stories in the week gone by.
From market reaction to Trump's geopolitical interventions to why U.S. rate cut bets are being dialed back, these are the stories to watch in business and finance in the coming week. Europe's markets are rallying on hopes for peace in Ukraine after U.S. President Donald Trump laid the groundwork in separate talks with Russia's Vladimir Putin and Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky. There's also attention on the conflict between Israel and Hamas and the fate of their fragile ceasefire. Trump's shock plan to clear out Gaza has been looming over the region. Gold is up over 10% since Trump's election win, and there seems to be little to stop a further surge. Much of the demand stems from concern that Trump's America First policies could upend global trade, financial flows, and geopolitics. Those themes might pop up at the G20 meeting starting February 20th, a meeting that U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio will not be attending. Walmart's quarterly report on Thursday should shed light on the health of the U.S. consumer as Wall Street frets about strong inflation. A recent survey showed consumer sentiment dropped in February to a 7-month low, and data from January shows U.S. consumer prices increasing by the most in more than 1.5 years. U.S. rate cut bets are being dialed back on the news. Asia-Pacific central banks take center stage in the coming days, with rate decisions in Australia, New Zealand, and Indonesia. The Reserve Bank of Australia is widely tipped to cut rates on Tuesday. Bets are on New Zealand's central bank easing rates by 0.5 percentage point, after lowering them by a whopping 125 basis points already. The Bank of Indonesia is trickier to call. Economists expect no change, even though inflation and growth data underscore the case for more easing.
And the US president expressed openness to the idea of Japan's Nippon Steel taking a minority stake in the US steel business. Addressing the media, Donald Trump mentioned that while Nippon Steel's $14.9 billion bid for the US steel was rejected by former US President Joe Biden's administration, the Japanese company is now exploring the possibility of investing in the US steel once again, potentially through debt.
Sir, about what's happening in Munich, Senator Roger Wicker shepherded Defense Secretary Hegseth through his confirmation.
Steel wants to take a minority stake as opposed to full ownership.
A minority stake I wouldn't mind greatly, but what they're doing right now is they're going to be investors, and they're going to be investing in, I think, debt and various other things. But we didn't want to let U.S. Steel go to a foreign company. U.S. Steel was the greatest company in the world for a period of 15 years. It was, it was the big deal 80 years ago or so. And psychologically, we can't even think about letting that happen. But what is going to happen, and we've already seen it, you see it in the stock price, with the tariffs, U.S. Steel is going to be a real powerhouse again.
Mr. President, I could just follow up on Jackie's question about Munich. Vice President Vance's speech to the conference has ruffled quite a few feathers in Europe.
What did he say to ruffle them?
And French President Emmanuel Macron is convening an emergency meeting of European leaders, including UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, amid growing concerns over Donald Trump's attempts to dominate the Ukraine peace process. The meeting, likely to be held in Paris today, will address Europe's exclusion from the US-led negotiations and Ukraine's future NATO membership and security guarantees for Kyiv.
French President Emmanuel Macron will host European leaders, including Britain's Prime Minister, on Monday for an emergency summit on the Ukraine war. The hastily arranged meeting comes after U.S. officials suggested Europe would have no role in any talks on ending the conflict. Leaders from Germany, Poland, Italy, as well as NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte and Ursula von der Leyen and Antonio Costa from the European Union are expected to be at the summit.
The United States really is the big question mark at the moment.
Political scientist and Bertelsmann Stiftung executive board member Daniela Schwarzer spoke to Reuters about the shifting power dynamics.
We see that the United States wants to retreat from international organizations, so it is weakening structures of international order.
U.S. President Donald Trump stunned European allies last week when he announced he had a call with Russian President Vladimir Putin and would start a peace process. Trump's Ukraine envoy Keith Kellogg said on Saturday that Europe would not have a seat at the table for Ukraine peace talks. Washington had sent a questionnaire to European capitals last week asking what they could contribute to security guarantees for Kyiv and what the size of any European-led force might be, according to a document seen by Reuters. That's in addition to putting Ukraine leadership under pressure and asking for a deal on the country's rare earth minerals without any security guarantees. Schwarzer said it demonstrates the new approach by the Trump administration.
The message they are sending is that the United States is now the key player in the middle between the two conflicting parties and wants to bring this peace to an end without really wanting to be involved in the stabilization of the situation.
U.S. officials have insisted they will only settle for a durable peace deal and that Ukraine will be at the table. It was revealed later on Saturday that the U.S. and Russian officials will meet in Saudi Arabia in the coming days to start Ukraine peace talks. Dozens of similar summits have shown the 27-nation EU to be dithering, disunited, and struggling to come up with a cohesive plan to end the Ukraine war. Some countries were unhappy that the meeting was only for selected leaders and not a full EU summit, EU officials said. The French presidency sought to assuage those misgivings, saying Monday's meeting could lead to other formats.
And Tesla chief and billionaire Elon Musk is set to unveil his latest AI creation, Grok 3, a chatbot designed to challenge the likes of ChatGPT. Now, Musk announced that a live demo of Grok 3 will take place. During a video conference at the World Government Summit, Musk touted Grok 3 as an AI model that would outpace any competitor, claiming it would reflect on its own mistakes for better logical consistency. The launch comes as a global race for more sophisticated, cost-effective AI chatbots heat up, with companies like China's DeepSeek making major strides in the AI field. In a major move, TikTok made its return to the US app stores of Apple and Google after a temporary ban was delayed. Donald Trump intervened, assuring both tech giants that they would not face fines for distributing or maintaining the Chinese-owned social media app. Now, this follows the ongoing tensions over apps' data privacy concerns, with Donald Trump's administration previously signaling potential action against TikTok.
TikTok is back in Apple and Google app stores in the US. Thursday saw it available to download again after some weeks absent. TikTok briefly went dark in the US last month before a law took effect on January 19th, requiring Chinese owner ByteDance to close it or sell it. That was over national security concerns. But on taking office, Donald Trump signed an order delaying the ban for 75 days while he decided on a course of action.
TikTok is worthless if I don't approve it.
Despite that, TikTok remained unavailable in Apple and Google app stores. Exactly why isn't clear, but analysts say the tech giants probably wanted assurances that they wouldn't get in legal trouble for distributing the short video app. TikTok had some 52 million downloads last year, split fairly evenly between Apple and Google. On Thursday, Trump said the 75-day ban delay could be prolonged if necessary.
And I'm sure it can be extended, but let's see, I don't think you'll need to. We have a lot of people interested in TikTok, and I hope to be able to make a deal. I think it would be good.
The president has floated the idea of TikTok being sold to various US parties, including Elon Musk and Oracle. Last month, he said he wanted the US to have a 50% stake in any new joint venture set up to own the app.
And shifting focus now, fast fashion giant Shein's plan to go public in the UK stock market are expected to be delayed until the second half of this year. According to reports, the delay follows US President Donald Trump's decision to close certain de minimis rules which may have impacted Shein's listing timelines. Now, these regulatory changes have raised concerns over trade and tax issues, potentially complicating the company's plans to debut on the London Stock Exchange.
Shein's plan to list on the UK stock market is likely to be postponed to the second half of this year. That's according to Britain's Financial Times on Friday. The fast fashion group aimed to go public in London in the first 6 months if it got approvals from UK and Chinese regulators. But the company's business prospects have been overshadowed by a move from US President Donald Trump. He aims to close so-called de minimis rules. It's a duty exemption in the US for shipments of less than $800, and it's helped China's Shein keep prices low. Industry experts argue the removal of it could hurt the firm's profitability and raise product prices in its biggest market, the US. The removal of de minimis is part of Trump's imposition of an additional 10% tariff on China. He called it an opening salvo in a clash between the world's two largest economies. The FT said Shein previously told investors a London listing could happen as soon as this Easter. Shein did not immediately respond to a Reuters request for comment.
And French luxury group Hermès reported fourth quarter results, surpassing analyst expectations. The company saw strong demand from consumers, particularly for its high-end items such as the iconic Birkin bags, which are priced, remember, upwards of $10,000 each. Take a look at this report.
French luxury group Hermès reported fourth quarter results well above analyst expectations on Friday and revealed a robust appetite from wealthy consumers for its most expensive items, including Birkin bags. They cost upwards of $10,000. Posting quarterly sales up by around 18%, Hermès continues to outshine rivals like LVMH and Kering-owned Gucci. The industry is suffering its slowest sales in years. Global luxury sales fell around 2% last year, hurt by a property crisis crimping spending in China and inflation-weary shoppers elsewhere. Shares in Hermès were up 4.5% in early Paris trade. It said sales for the fourth quarter rose 18% to over $4.1 billion. The double-digit growth contrasts with LVMH's 1% rise over the last 3 months of the year. The Asia region, excluding Japan, is Hermès's biggest market, and sales there grew 9% in the fourth quarter. Asked about the impact from potential US tariffs on European goods, Executive Chair Axel Dumas said the company would not adjust its production. Hermès announced it would be raising prices by 6 to 7% this year to reflect higher production costs and exchange rates.
And that's all we have on Morning Brief at 9 this morning. Thank you very much for watching.
What is to the nines? In literal terms, it's perfection. But to us, it's not just a phrase, it's an attitude. One that starts at your desk and sends a statement to the world. To the nines